Welcome everyone to another edition of Hardcore Wrestling Rants. I am your hardcore host Rick Head, and I'm joined by the hardcore crew. First, from the Skeleton Realms, he's our male protagonist, Joseph Knight. Joe, what's shaking?
Male protagonist. It sounds like I fondle people's balls or something.
No,
Or
male.
is that a
Get a
proctologist? I don't
dictionary. You don't
know.
know what that means? Male
Hey,
protagonist.
hey. I am, like Jesse Ventura says, I'm a broadcast journalist here. I'm a broadcast journalist, not a linguistist.
Oh, okay.
I leave that to Zoe, or I leave that to you. So
Okay.
anyway, hi everybody, welcome to the show. Let's Rick, like we were talking earlier, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So
Absolutely.
let's have some big fun.
Yeah. And of course, over at Lance Moss TV, he's the incomparable Lance Moss. Lance, what's going on?
Anybody hear any news Monday?
Well, there's been a lot of weird news going on. But let's talk about, of course, the biggest news that WWE has sold the majority of their company, 51%, to Endeavor, which is the parent company who owns UFC. According to reports, Nick Khan will remain as the CEO of the WWE. Triple H will still be head of creative, and as for Vince McMahon, he will remain as the chairboard for now, at least. So, PWI Insider noted that a major factor in selling to Endeavor was Vince McMahon's having knowing CEO Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel, and they've both known each other for over 22 years. The situation was much seen as the devil you know, as opposed to starting from scratch with the other bidders, and there was no fear with WWE Endeavor that they would come in and try to reshape the wheel. Uh, Joe, now obviously this is huge news. WWE has actually sold more than half of their company. That means that Vince no longer doesn't have to worry about answering to the stockholders. He has to answer to Endeavor now.
Yes, and that is one of the biggest issues that Vince is going to have to face. While he does have the ability to, control WWE as a brand, remember, this is a new company. He is at a one minority short. So it's not like he can just say, "Hey, I'm going to be literally controlling what it gets done." He can say what he can say for WWE's part or their side, but on the other side, it's you're basically he can be voted out because the UFC or the Endeavor group now has they're like I think believe it's like 51%.
That's correct.
So yeah, they have 51% to WWE's 49. So yeah, we'll see how this turns out.
Well, again, and that's really a big question. As to what happens if later on if there's some kind of a friction. Let's say if more scandals come up the line with Vince McMahon. Can Endeavor fire Vince for all intents and purposes? How does that work, Joe?
They can physically, because they have the majority rule, they can literally get him off that position. So in this case,
Vince getting off is part of the thing that got him in this kind of trouble.
yeah, but in this case, Vince McMahon can be voted out. So um, eh, that's one of the thoughts behind this, that he can get taken out of the position. So it's like I said, it's a very, very delicate situation here. So we will have to see how this works. But right now, if he does something that warrants, like you said, another scandal comes out, then they have no choice but to say, "Hey, Vince, guess what? You're bad for business. Get out." And literally, they can, and it can happen. That's why now this Endeavor group with the UFC has the power to to go out of its way and say, yeah, guess what? Um, we have, we can control everything that you do. So let's see what happens. I mean, Vince has gotten himself out of the public because now I think it's still a private. Now it's still a corporate entity. So um, we'll have to see how this works really in all actuality.
All right, Lynch, your thoughts about Endeavor, buying 51% of WWE?
Well, this is something that has not happened in well over 40 years. Vince McMahon now has a boss.
Yeah, and Terry 3G over in our chat room, he said, how does it turn out? Reports already said that Vince is back involved in creative, and trend wrestlers are already looking for a way out. I did read that a little
Yeah.
bit earlier today, but it's still a little bit back and forth whether Vince is just kind of talking through Triple H and Triple H is just kind of like, listening to what he has to say and playing into it, or if Vince in fact pushed Triple H aside and said, "Nope, this is how you do it, son." You know, um, and I really hope that doesn't happen because, like I said, I mean, everybody before Vince, when Vince left before the scandal, everybody was relieved. Stephanie was in control. Triple H was in control, and it was working well. But of course, Vince had to come back in, do the sale, and where that happens from now, it's just only a matter of time to see what happens. So we're gonna have
I
to
don't think
keep.
Vince knows how to not take over creative.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to ever happen because of the fact that Vince loves being in control. And in this case, he saved himself from possibly losing more money. But my God, this is a scenario here that he could, in all intents and purposes, guys, he boasts that he's going to be untouchable, but now I think he's going to be in a situation that he can be touchable because he can be in a place where literally if there's something, a scandal comes up or anything, this is no longer his company. He doesn't have a majority say to say, I can leave and come back like he's been doing before. But no, this is now more serious because if there is something that the Endeavor group, even though he's part of that, if another group, if somebody in that Endeavor, Dana White or anybody says, I don't like what's going on here, then obviously he can literally get pushed out.
Well, here's the thing. The guy that runs Endeavor is pretty lenient when it comes to scandals, because it might have been a month or two ago. Dana White and his wife in public were hammered and slapping each other in the face.
No, they were testing that new Slap Happy or whatever the fuck that show is
oh,
that they
that
slap
slap
each other.
fight. Yeah,
Yeah.
slapness is what they should call it.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Shane McMahon made a surprise appearance at WrestleMania Night 2, where he confronted The Miz. What started out as an impromptu match turned out to be a disaster for McMahon. When Shane did a leapfrog over Miz, Shane landed the wrong way and tore his quad. Some said it was his knee. Apparently later on it was found out that it was quads. While Maddox was tending to Shane, Snoop came in and called an audible where he took out Miz with the doggy elbow, which is supposed to rip off of the people's elbow. But you know what, Lance? We hadn't seen Shane in some time. He comes back, and what a way for him to go down like that.
Yeah, I mean, when we were watching it together on Sunday, we both thought it was his knee.
Yeah.
And what's the deal with this family and tearing your damn quad?
Well,
Triple H on Raw, Vinnie Mac blew both of them some bitches up at the Rumble at the same time. Now, Shano, Stephanie, you might want to get your quads checked.
Well,
We got a lot of people now over at the YouTube chat room. We have James Jones. He says, yeah, Triple H has some part, but Raw went on it. It felt more like Vince. That's what he was talking about more.
Yeah.
About Raw was coming up. Um, Mark K says, I would love to hear the panel's opinion on Raw after the Mania dumpster fire. And I am also pissed that Cody didn't win at Mania. And there is also Trent Killer Chris from TKWA. He waves. How you doing? And here we go. We've got Terry 3G. So we have getting a packed house here over on the YouTube channel. And this is where you want to be on the YouTube channel. So check that out. Rick, you guys, you probably saw Raw. I didn't. Did it felt Vince McMahonish?
I watched some of it, and I'd be a liar if I said no because some things are kind of a little bit like didn't seem like Triple H-ish, I guess. So I can understand. I do understand where James is coming from. And yeah, you know what? For the record, I am kind of pissed that Cody Rhodes didn't win WrestleMania. But as that match was going on, I was sitting with Lance, and Lance and I'm like, Lance, I'm like, I have doubts. I'm like, I don't think Cody's gonna win this. They were pushing it too hard, and I was on board, and then it just towards the end, I'm like, oh, okay, so Sika's in the back. I'm like, all right, cool, maybe he's gonna win. And then
son of a bitch.
Yeah, then the Usos came down, and I started having more of a shut doubt. And then it came to where they finally wrapped it up or did the go home for the match. I saw Paul Heyman. I'm like, oh, it's over. He's gonna get screwed. And lo and behold, Sika came up and then hit the Samoan spike on Kilt Rhodes, and then Reigns finished him off with the spears. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I should have figured that out, but oh well.
What's sad is, again, while Roman you saw he held on to that match throughout that whole thing, because I managed to see it also at work. I had to resort to my mobile data to watch it while I was at work, unfortunately. But Roman, regardless him being really not the promo guy and not the talkative guy or anything like that, who respect me and that's all, or whatever he wants to say. But worker wise, if you get him with a good opponent, he can hang. It's just you're kind of ruining the guy by having it's like he can't win on his own, even though that's a typical heel thing. But enough's enough. You saw the Usos, then you had Owens and Sami Zayn come in, and then then they kicked out Taz Jr. and he came back in the end, and it's like, okay, so now what? It is. So now what's the next step? Hell in a Cell at SummerSlam, or something that nobody can interfere, and somebody's going to come out from under the ring. They really need to no pun intended, rein in all these distractions, because people are just going to say, "Oh, okay, well, who's going to come in? Is his grandmother going to come in, run in now, or is it Sika Nafa? They're going to give him the Samoan spike to somebody? Enough is enough. Either give Roman a match where he can win on his own and moving forward, or take the fucking belt off him, because I'm tired of seeing the whole thing."
Yeah, TKWA said Samoan Taz, and
yeah,
sounds about
that's
right.
He is.
James Jones says Vince loves rematches, but more promos is kind of a sign of. But who knows? Now, James, I don't know if you covered, if you watched this past Monday Night Raw, where Cody Rhodes was in a tag team with Brock Lesnar, and he's going to face off with the Bloodline, Roman Reigns and Sika Sokola, where if Rhodes' team won, he would get a rematch. But, of course, Lesnar turned right on Rhodes and hit him with an F5. So that tells me right there that Cody and Brock Lesnar are going to have a feud before he even gets another shot at Roman Reigns. But that's just my opinion on that whole situation. All right, you know what, guys? We're going to move along.
Oh, before we do that, we got off of the Shane O'Mac here. What a bad way to come out. You make your dance. I was hyped when I saw him. I even said, "Here come the money," and I was like, "Oh shit!" And then this guy tears his quad. That must have made him feel so fucked up. Gee, Shane, great entrance that you did. And then on top of that, fucking brain damaged Snoop Dogg that has to get his win over the Miz. I know the Miz is a job guy, company guy, but God, why? Out of all the people, why give it to some fucking worthless piece of shit whose highlights have been just taking drugs and having Mercedes Monet as a relative? You know, geez, they could
out
have
there.
done something better with this. They could have brought somebody out from the back.
Well,
Yeah, hey, here comes the Brooklyn Brawler. Let's might as well put him over the Miz.
the thing is that it was a prompt. It was like he had to call an audible. Nobody
I
thought
know.
that Shane was gonna get hurt. So obviously somebody had to roll in and finish it because Miz is looking like an idiot, like circling around the whole time. Knowing he's hurt, saying shit. What do I do? What do I do? So it's just one of those sucky things. And
Yeah.
but nevertheless, I want to talk on while we talk about injuries. Top Flight's Dante Martin suffered a nasty foot injury or leg injury during Reach for the Sky ladder match at Ring of Honor's Supercard. Penta El Zero hit Dante with a springboard destroyer through a table, but when Martin went through both tables, it twisted his ankle in what looked like to be 180 degrees in the wrong way. But then again, with your legs, I looked at it and I cringed. There is the video in our HWR chat room, and it is just very ugly. And right now, so far, there's still no information on the scale of Dante's injury or when it'll return. As for Darius Martin, he's going to be going into singles actions. Lance, what's your thoughts on Dante Martin's injury?
Well, when I saw it, I damn near threw up. Because, hot damn it, nasty. And a close friend of mine had close to that same damn injury. It took her about 18 months to get back to where anywhere near 100%.
And if she wrestle, what she do? She'd run, or what? What's your profession?
She just slipped on some ice, and her leg went one way, and the bottom half of her leg, foot, and ankle went the other.
Yeah. Well,
and this is going to require multiple surgeries, and rehab is going to be a bitch.
Wow. Over in the chat room, Rick, James Jones says, "Hell yeah, I cringed to." She cringed because that's how he broke his leg in the same way.
Wow. So. And when you have a wrestler who's like legs like that, especially somebody like Dante Martin, who is, as you would call it, a high flyer, or Joe's favorite term, flippy flop guy, that's definitely going to take a couple of years off your career.
Yeah.
Joe, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, let me put it this way. Good for him. When I saw it, I says, good. Hopefully the dumb little piece of shit learns not to fucking do flippity flips. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Flippity flips are okay, fine. You want to do one or two. When you're constantly doing them repeatedly, it becomes an issue where you're bound. 90% are going to have an injury. And you know what? I when I saw it, I laughed my ass up because that's good for him. He knows maybe I should not do this shit or do it sparingly. They always do this stupidity. They always do fucking. That's why ECW got boring. The original one chair shot, great, boom, one chair shot. Okay, well the next person has to do two chair shots. Then the third person has to do two chair shots in a table, and on and on and on. Nobody says, okay, nobody in the back, none of these idiots here, because Penta should have known. He's technically the ring general of this match. He should have said, me thinks maybe, man, that I could possibly fucking hurt this motherfucker.
I know you're trying to sound like Rey Mysterio, but you sound more like Cheech Marin.
That's what I'm going for. I wouldn't insult Rey Mysterio.
Well, good. While you're at it, pass the joint then, will you please?
Yeah, I'll pass it around the world for you. But In this case, why? It didn't necessarily need to be. If this was a high profile pay-per-view, it would have been great. Okay, control. Nobody's telling these people control. I'm not saying slap a headlock for fucking 15 minutes, but wrestling back in the WCW Cruiserweight days, they did high spots and they did wrestling. Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, they wrestled and then they did high spots. Rey Mysterio, Hoovy wrestled and did high spots. They had control. Apparently, just for ratings, these dumbasses are just saying, "Okay, let's let's do this." So maybe, hopefully, Dante Martin may he rehab well and get his that leg in good condition. But that should be now in your mind that maybe I shouldn't do stupid shit. Rick, then this type of injury, if he doesn't rehab it well and if he rushes back to the ring, he's going to look at permanent damage with that leg down the road.
Yeah, I definitely hope he does take his time and doesn't rush back. He's still a young kid. His career still has, like decades ahead of him. I just hope that, like you said, doesn't rush back. Because when you rush back from any injury, it winds up literally kicking you in the ass. And I mean, you look at people like Saraya. She rushed back from her first neck injury, and then she re-injured her neck, and she was out twice as long. CM Punk, when he was in WWE. Vince McMahon was kind of edging him to come back and pushing him to come back from the injury, and he wanted to take at least a couple more weeks, a couple more months out, but Vince kind of pushed him. He's like, all right, and then he got injured again, and then he was out even longer, and that's what seems to happen. So and again, James Jones, they're careless today. When it comes to this type of match, a ladder match, you're gonna expect to see all these high flying spots. If this is just a regular match doing all these spots, then I'll be like, okay, you need to chill it out a little bit. And obviously nobody plans on getting hurt. But I see they had the two tables. I think if they only had one table and they pulled the table out a little bit, not so close to the ring, he probably would have been all right. There was just a couple of other little factors that was an issue. But nevertheless, I do hope that Dante Martin heals up and comes back safely. I am a fan of him. So
James Jones says they are careless today. Would you guys say that that's true?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say today. I'm just, I mean, when you have wrestlers who are high flyers, are naturally high flyers, they kind of throw those things, they don't seem to worry about so much as, the next guy would.
Oh, God. Mark K says the last time he saw a leg injury like that was Sid Vicious in WCW. Remember that?
Oh, on Monday Nitro. I do, and I cringe. I even said that in the chat room. I'm like, oh. When I first saw that injury, the first person I thought was Sid Vicious.
Yeah, he ain't gonna be playing softball for a while.
Yeah.
Was that a clean break?
No.
It looked like it was a clean break.
I think it was definitely it was a compound. I think. I saw what he did. Now this is stupid. Sid Vicious is 6 foot, something. 285, maybe 300 pounds. He goes up for the second rope and tries to do a single leg drop, and his leg just crippled. That's stupid.
Do y'all know who told him to do that?
I wonder who.
Johnny Ace.
Well, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
But when I read later on, I guess it was the boot that was keeping everything clean, because when they brought him back and they untied his boot, I guess it was just like a pool of blood just splashed out because his bone poked right through. So that's a compound.
Mm-hmm.
That's another reason why I always say wrestling boots should be required in fucking wrestling matches, because you never know some people have had injuries. If you did not have a wrestling boot on, properly tied, if you had an injury, my God, you know how bad, like John Cena and his sneakers, and all these young kids and their sneakers and their little kick pads. If they would have wrestling boots, they would have literally saved themselves leg injuries, because that you still have the injury, but the boot keeps it straight to a point or springs it back. So, I mean, literally, that's it's just a scary thing when you see stuff like that.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move along to our next topic. This is another injury. Matt Jackson suffered a partially torn bicep last week on Dynamite. According to Dave Meltzer, Jackson should be out for 6 to 8 weeks. The hope is Matt Jackson will be ready for a trios feud with the Blackpool Combat Club at Double or Nothing on May 28th. Matt Jackson did say that he chose not to get surgery because surgery you can heal a little bit faster, which I don't know, Joe, if that makes any sense or not.
No, it doesn't. He just wants to hurry up to get back in the fucking ring, which he's an idiot. Look what happened with Cody Rhodes when he had that injury. It was bad, and Cody went into that match with Seth Rollins, and you saw how bad that injury was. You know, honestly, these guys do not freaking get it. You know, you're injured. What is your ego that fucking big that you have to go and like disregard your safety, your health, and everything else in it, and just say screw that, I'm going to come back because of ego? No, you take that surgery, heal yourself, and come back. He holds a high position in the company. It doesn't. He's not going to lose anything.
Yeah. All right, Lance. Well, what's your thoughts on all this?
Well, cause I heard they were planning for a blood and guts. But if they are, they're gonna need to find somebody else because
It's Double or Nothing, not Blood and Guts.
No, I heard they were gonna do trying to go for a blood and guts match.
Okay, I haven't heard. I didn't read anything on that because Blood and
Well,
Guts.
I hadn't. That's a little bit of a rumor mill thing I heard. I hadn't seen anything, but if they are, they're gonna need to find somebody else. I don't think Matt will be ready for that yet.
Well, you know, if they really wanted to keep the whole Elite versus Blackpool Combat Club going, I mean, I don't see any reason why they couldn't bring in Hangman Page in to fill in. He obviously still has issues with John Moxley, and he's also been friends with the Elite, so.
But he was going to be their fourth, from what I was hearing.
Okay, I've been reading nothing but a trios match, but again, you know.
Well, now it's going to have to be a trios match.
Yeah.
All right. So.
And actually, if you look at the chat room, Terry says Ray Phoenix, a year ago, got the same kind of injury as Dante Martin in a similar move situation. So isn't that a coinky dink?
Well, you know, welcome to Damage Incorporated.
Damn.
And you know, again, yeah, with high flyers, yeah, you're gonna suffer, you know, be inclined to get more injuries than the next guy. You know, as opposed to a ground and pound or a submission wrestler or just your garden variety wrestler. And then, yeah, I understand that, but some people, you know, they want to do the high flying. They want that high thing because, especially nowadays with wrestling, you know, if you're not really an aerial wrestler, you know, the 80s of old wrestling, as much as I love it, those days are gone, Joe. We're not going to see technical wrestling back to back to back to back.
Well, that's the thing, though. You know why it's gone, and there's still a market for it. The problem is people are so set. People are so set on extreme, on hardcore, deathmatch, flippity flips, that if they let's say they brung back a classic wrestling match, okay, suplexes, slams, you know, corner hits, let's say a typical Ric Flair type match with Magnum TA or Dusty Rhodes, fans might pop for that shit. You know, now it's like they're so used to seeing the guys flip onto the third row and do so many flippity flips and all that they look at this as okay. Here comes this splash, and I hate that shit in the corner where all the wrestlers that are even fighting against you, they all group together, and you fucking see them grouping together while they all turn up and look to see if the guy's gonna come splash at them from the top turnbuckle, and then they look back down and play it off that they're holding each other, and then they all look up again and wait for the guy to come. That's that's not fucking wrestling. That's a stage acrobatic show. So yeah, and again, we all know professional wrestling, sports entertainment is predetermined, and everybody practices. The injuries are real, and all that shit. But I don't. I think the fans will like to see something else. If they got a Ric Flair classic match, they wouldn't be surprised. If they got hell, if they, I even throw up there the and Mark K says MJF, Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
You know, they do ground pound matches, which they have technical moves. They do one or two flips, but everything else is ground and pound submission moves and all that. You're not going to see too many flippity flips, and their matches are just a great than watching these guys do the flippity flips. So, like all these guys who are getting injured, is it worth getting injured, being out for 30 days, 40 days, 6 months, a year, because you wanted to get a whole bunch of YouTube clicks? No. That's why when I look at wrestling today, I get a little bit disgusted with the stuff they do, because I grew up in the 80s. The biggest move, and Lance, you know it, was the pile driver by the King.
Illegal in Tennessee for a while because they wanted to keep it safe.
Yep. And, but he did it and people popped. And that was it. Match is over. Unless you're the Road Warriors who kicked out of fucking everything. And I love the Road Warriors. If you're the Undertaker, Tombstone, match is over. Macho Man Elbow, boom, match is over. DDT, Jake Roberts, match is over. So I think the fans got so used to seeing ECW, stupidity, and then now seeing these guys who, okay, I'm 180 pounds. I could fucking do, let's see here, triple moonsaults into the air, sip some tea, eat some crumpets before I hit the person just to get a 2 count.
All right, well, Joe, hold on. There's Mark K in the YouTube chat room, and he has a question for you. What a series of high spots do for storytelling?
What a series of high spots.
Like, when somebody does all high spots, what are they doing?
Oh, okay, I see it. The question is, what the series of high spots do for storytelling? It doesn't.
Yeah.
High spots are there just to wow the fans. Okay, too much of it dulls the fans. High spots have nothing to do with the story. A story could be like what we see, Samoa Sika, whatever the fuck, Taz Jr. spiking Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. That's a story, because now that match can go in a different way. Roman Reigns retaining his belt, that's a story. It could go a different way. The Blackpool Combat Club attacking the Elite, that's a story. You don't really need high spots. You do not need high spots to tell a story. You can tell a story with a simple match that can carry on to the next one. Like when I ran a company, every story has a beginning, middle, and an end. And then you have the individual chapters. So in the beginning, the two guys are going to meet. They'll give you a hell of a match. The bad guy either does something to the good guy and he loses, and now he wants revenge. Middle, it's another match. Bad guy does it again. Then you start going into the finals where finally, after all of this abuse, where all the ganging ups on and all this, the hero triumphs at the end by requesting a match that the bad guy cannot weasel his way out of. And then it goes. That's a story. That's how you set up the story. MJF, it's a perfect example. He's got the gift of gab. He's got the ring skills. He can get you captivated in a match even before the story begins. Like with Jungle Boy, he took skinny little Jungle Boy, who's a great talent, is now pulling him into a story where he was lost in limbo. The last time we saw Jungle Boy, he defeated fucking Christian Cage. Wow, that's going to help his career. And he was out of the loop. Now, because of the story, now Jungle Boy's thrust into the main event with a possibility that okay, may not happen, but now he can possibly be a world champion. Now you're captivated. You want to see the bad guy MJF get his ass whipped by Jungle Boy. You want to see Jungle Boy triumph after all the shit he's been through with Luchasaurus, with Christian Cage, with Marco I Can't Grow a Stunt. So that, now you're going to finally see him take off way better. That's how a story is in professional wrestling if done right. Chair shots, table shots, high spots are just accessories. It's like a cooking show. You have your cooking show, you have the chef who's important, and the accessories, the stove, the food, and everything are just there as that they are accessories to continue the story to the end where the chef serves the plate with the food in it. So that's how a storyline is. Now I can breathe.
We'll let you take a couple of short breaths, Joe. We're going to go on to yet another injury that happened last week. Uh, John Callis suffered a really nasty head gash when the Blackpool Combat Club attacked him behind the scenes. When Callis went down, he hit a lighting rig, which and it just the report said the gash was so deep on Callis's head you could actually see the skull. Thankfully, Callis did not suffer any kind of concussion, but he'll have a really nice scar to tell the story. Again, guys, this is just a really kind of like those like freak accidents that does happen. Lance, what's your thoughts about that?
When the attack segment happened, I saw Don Callis scurry off like something was fucked, but I didn't know that, and I had heard that he got hurt, but I was like, how? To the skull, damn.
Well, you got to think about it. Your forehead, how much skin is really there? If you touch,
that's true.
There's only like a couple of layers of skin, and usually, that's why it's a most popular place for blading. Joe, I'm sure you can chime in on this one. When you get bladed the skull, you bleed a lot because there's a lot of embryos in there. That's it. It's just you just get pulled real fast.
Oh, exactly. And I saw the segment. He actually, when he fell a little bit to the side because he wanted to sell it to the side, not in front. So what happened was when he fell, he did not see that tripod or stage equipment right there. So he took a nasty header right on that, and it actually cut him up deeply. So either that or as we've seen in professional wrestling, when wrestlers tape their fingers, they're hiding a blade. And I've seen it because I was in a match where my should I say my charge, my guy had his razor blade taped to his finger, and when the other guy went to pick him up in a pile driver, he accidentally raked his hand over his entire his head, his forehead, and the cut was so deep that we had to literally give the signal to end the match because he was losing too much blood at a quick pace. There's not a lot of skin, protecting that forehead, and the skull. So you cut in deep. It's a real small little piece of skin. You cut that deep, and you're going to be bleeding buckets. There are a lot of veins that do flow through there. There is a lot of um, you know um, heavy light tissue that if you don't know how to do it right, you can cut yourself. You can cut into your eye. You can cut your temple on the side of your head. That it's very dangerous. I'm thinking maybe, and by looking at the picture, Rick, I did not see any taped finger. So I'm assuming that when he fell, he hit one of the equipment and that's what cut him open.
Yeah, it was a freak accident. This was not
Yeah.
a blading. This was like he went down, didn't see the lighting rig, and the rig just like gashed him, right in front of it, directly in his forehead. But you know what? Mark K actually brought up a couple of good topics that I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
FDR will be taking on the Guns in a titles versus career match. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm a little bit worried. I hope that this is not a sign of FTR leaving. You know, FTR is probably one of the best tag teams in the business, let alone in AEW. So for them to lose to somebody like the Guns, and I believe that James Jones says the Ass Boys have a lot of potential too. They do have potential, but do I really want to see FTR leave to push them over? What's your thoughts, Joe?
And again, with the situation right now in WWE, I don't think it's a good place for FTR to go to, unless it's a guaranteed big contract that they look at and say, "Yeah, this is great money, money." Unless that's what they're gonna do, and they don't care what they do. Look at the Miz. The Miz takes abuse from fucking Snoop Dogg and Pat McAfee. So he's a guy who doesn't care because he's got a lot of money coming in. So, you know, if FTR loses this, yes, it cements the Gun Club as the top team that they've been looking to do. But I don't want to see that. I don't want to see these guys leave because they're just going to head to a place where it's not going to be good for them at this point. So, Rick, I hope that they don't leave. I hope the belts go up. Now, here's the thing, too. I'm going to ask you guys and the folks in the chat room. Mark says McMahon hates tag team wrestling.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. I'm not going to debate
Name a
that.
tag team that he's actually that kept that the Hart Foundation, they broke up. Even LOD, he broke them up. Road Warriors, Dudley Boys, he eventually broke them up. The Hardy Boys broke them up. I think the only tag team that stayed was right now temporarily is New Day, and of course the Usos. But that's can only imagine before he wakes up one day and says, you know what, I think I'm going to split them up.
Well, he did technically when he had Jay go against Jimmy.
Yeah.
So,
but that was a short thing. That was a complete break. That was kind of like a family matters issue, so to speak, or sibling rivalry.
Well, that was the DOI hitting the sauce,
Lance, real quick, what's your thoughts on the FDR and Ass Boys career versus titles?
It's going to surprise the hell out of me if FTR leaves, because the main place they would go, the reason they left is back in power. So I don't think they'd be going back to a Vince McMahon controlled WWE.
Well, what other things I don't think about, what if they wanted to go to maybe New Japan, or just maybe even just work the indies at their own leisure? They have worked around all the other indies.
And I have heard a little something about them wanting to do that, but with the schedule that AEW has, now granted it's getting a little bit busier with these house shows every now and then, why not, instead of only having one paycheck, get multiple?
Exactly my point. So, all right, and then one other match, of course, tonight. Jamie Hayter will be defending her AEW Women's Championship against Riho. Now, I'm going to tell you honestly, personally, I'm not too worried about Hayter losing to Riho. Now, Riho is a former, AEW Women's Champion, but she's kind of like a short version of Rey Mysterio. She's like the underdog that just gets these freak wins. Only she's much prettier and a lot shorter. I don't know. Joe, what do you think about that match?
Yeah, you know what? I look at this match, and I don't think Jamie Hayter's going to have any issues with this. Honestly, Rio, it's okay. She's a nice worker, but to see that she's going to win a match, win the title, no, I think Hayter's got like a big, she's got such potential right now She's got the tools. She's a lot. She's very attractive. She's got that nice voice that Soraya wishes she had. Um, and uh, honestly, Rio's been to the well once too many times already. I don't want to see another Riho win. It's time for somebody else to start getting these matches. I wouldn't mind seeing Willow Nightingale getting a couple of shots in, and plus with Tyra, whatever the fuck her
Tyre
name is,
Valkyrie.
Valkyrie, coming in, they're not just gonna have Hayter lose the belt to Little Riho. They're gonna have her lose to somebody one with better boobs.
Well,
So Lord knows I love boobs, and women wrestlers need
you
boobs.
like boobs? Oh no, gee, I had
Oh,
no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the HWR chat room on Facebook and you'll see the post. When Rick puts up a post like with a woman wrestler with no boobs, I'm screaming.
Okay, well, a couple of them has a nice set, and you're like, they're not big enough. I'm like,
yeah.
this is Joe. For those who are listening, this is Joe's fetish. They have to have like triple D or they're nothing. You know.
Yeah. And
They gotta look the part of women wrestlers. They gotta have like the. I'm not saying they need to be the '80s glow girls. Lord knows we don't need that crap. La Farmer's daughter, and mind you, I met some of the glow women, Ashley Carpentier, and a couple others, and they, at a convention, and my God, I was always a big mark for Ashley Carpentier, and if you don't know who that is, look her up on the original. She had the best body of the time for glow, and then you had Tina Ferrari, which became Ivory. Um, so but yeah, I mean, like Little Riho's got a cute face. But besides that, she had her back to you. Said, "Excuse me, boy, can you give me some more coffee, please?"
All right,
Oh, no,
Lance.
I'm sorry. How about this way? You go get me
Oh,
coffee,
Jesus Christ.
Mr. Fuji. May he rest in peace.
Okay. You know what? We're just gonna move on. We're completely
hang on,
shift.
boss. Hang on.
Oh.
Before we go any further, that's Joe at SchoolNewsRun.com.
Oh my God, you have to add that. I forgot about that.
I gotta get one in per show, damn it.
All right. Well, moving on. There were rumors circling suggesting that Drew McIntyre could be leaving WWE when his current contract expires. Now, McIntyre's contract ends in 2023, possibly early 2024. While there are no contracts available at this time, PWI and the Observer say there's plenty of time for negotiations. So the big question is, if McIntyre leaves, where would he go? Now, he went to Impact when he first left WWE, and that's pretty much where he created this Scottish psychopath, which WWE now kind of like made him to like a PG happy, Scottish guy who just walked around with a big sword.
A PG happy Scottish psychopath.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't know. I mean, some people would say go to AEW. I don't want to see any more ex-WWE wrestlers in WWE. The only one would be exception to the rule is maybe Cody Rhodes. Other than that, go somewhere else. There's too many fucking people in AEW that worked for WWE that's stealing the spotlight. Joe, your thoughts?
You know what? He is such a good fit for WWE right now. I don't want to see him in AEW stealing a spot from some up and comer. I respect Drew McIntyre. I've seen what happened when he was just, the prodigal son of Vince, and then he left and he went to Impact and then he came back. I like who he is here. There's still he's still got enough gas in that tank to keep going. You know, he's done it all. He doesn't need no belts. Right now he needs to just focus on being the best entertainer in the business, like Seth Rollins, who tries to be. Uh, you know, there is Ring of Honor, there is AEW, there is New Japan. Maybe a New Japan deal will be good for him for short term. He's going to make a lot more money on an easier basis, but AEW no, and Ring of Honor that'll be a drop for him. He'll just end up dominating it. So Yeah, he just needs to stay in WWE. There's no reason for him to leave.
All right, Lance, over to you.
I want him to stay, but if he leaves, I can kind of see him doing this. First, doing a bunch of indie shows in the UK because he still has a connection to the UK indie scene. And then probably signing a deal with New Japan, and then mainly working a well a run there and having a match here and there in AEW, not becoming all elite or whatever, but because AEW and New Japan have that kind of relationship, he'll have like maybe, I don't know, span of 2 years, maybe 5 matches in AEW.
And that I wouldn't mind. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of Drew McIntyre, and that's
Yeah,
why, but I'm also a fan of, I guess you could go
yeah,
what they call AEW homegrown. I want to see, people like Jungle Boy rise up, Sammy Guevara, and all the others that are just,
yeah,
have to take it backstage to every new ex WWE wrestler that was in because Tony Khan's,
yeah.
I hate to say, is a mark.
Yep. And here's another thing too. They lose out some of that great workers that they try to build. Like look at honestly, look at Brian Cage. Look at Lance Archer. Look at a couple of the other guys who are big, who could make it into a big, get the big time going, but they're not given that opportunity because somebody's always taking their spots, and that they don't know how to book them for it. Now you have Hobbs as the TNT champion. That would have been perfect for the big guys to work on. Now you've got the international title that can literally float to guys like, Jungle Boy, um, many of the other people that they have there. I like that they have these guys with the ability to, you know, kind of build up their characters and everything through this. So yeah, again, right now, I think honestly they don't need any more former WWE people. They drew the line when they brung in Sierra. Oh, I'm back.
Soraya, you mean?
Soraya Saria, the little tramp that every time I see her, I wish they would break her neck or she should be in porn. It's like her ass says, I want to suck some cock. Please put it in there.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Fuck.
Well, on a
He says
sadder,
no.
oh,
He don't want to see that.
on a
I
sadder
feel like
note, Luke Williams, aka Bushwhacker Luke, announced today that Bob Miller, better known as Bushwhacker Butch, his longtime partner, the sheep herders and Bushwhackers, passed away early last week. He was 78 years old. Bushwhacker Wilk, excuse me, guys, like a little tongue-tied. Bushwhacker Luke is had a medical episode shortly after arriving in L.A. for WrestleCon 2023, which resulted in being rushed to the hospital. The Bushwhackers were inducted to the Hall of Fame back in 2015. And you know what, guys? I'm going to tell you something. I loved the Bushwhackers when I was a kid. They were funny. They were just happy-go-lucky. They never got that chance to, win a championships, at least not in the WWF or WWE. But nevertheless, they were entertaining. Lance, your thoughts?
Well, they were kind of a yin yang thing because outside of the WWF, those were two of the most vicious motherfuckers in tag team wrestling of the 80s. They were called the sheep herders. That y'all thought Abdullah was bad. These bastards would damn near kill you. And then Vince gets a hold of them and turns them into two of the funniest bitches of the 80s. Either way, loved all their work.
Now
Because
I'm gonna be
who among us can say you didn't do the bushwhacker dance?
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I am not familiar with their careers as sheep herders. So I read it and then I looked into it but other than that, I had no idea. I thought it was just a different name. And then
Oh, you missed some hellacious matches. Them
yeah,
and the Fantastics, them and the Fabulous Ones, them and the Rock and Roll Express. These two guys, you see them in the WWS, the lovable head licking bushwhackers. If you would have saw them early '80s to mid '80s, you'll be like, holy shit! Their matches in the old UWF, oh, and in other territories, they've held numerous championships. These guys, Lance, I wouldn't call them really hardcore because while hardcore wrestling was still developing, these guys were just I'm gonna beat your ass type guys.
Yeah, I mean they. Yeah, I mean hell, some of the matches they had with the Moondogs.
Oh, that's what I wish if WWE would or WWF back in the day would have brung them in as that, then transition them as baby faces, or have them as baby faces, then snap all of a sudden and be the dangerous bushwhacker, be the sheep herders. They, they would people would have really said, "Holy shit!" So may he rest in peace. We're losing too many
Yeah.
of these great legendary workers. You know what? And I hate to say this, and I know I don't want to say this, but I regret the day. I'll be really sad in professional wrestling the day we lose a Ric Flair and a Hulk Hogan. We already lost some of the greatest tag teams
yeah,
today.
and people could say what they want about Hulk Hogan and all his controversies or whatever, but Hulk Hogan was still growing up. He was like my number one fan. Oh, he was like I loved Hulk Hogan. I mean, I had all Hulk Hogan memorabilia, everything. I was a Hulk Hogan mark. You know, and when I started watching NWA and WCW and WCCW, I started like catching on to Ric Flair and Sting, um, Great Muta, all those other wrestlers because I was for a very short time in my early wrestling, all I knew was WWF. I did not was not aware of all those other ones, and then I started staying up late at night, and that's when I started seeing all these other shows. I'm like, oh shit, I even watched Glow, which I thought Glow I had even in my young years, I kind of scratched my head. I'm like, okay, I'm like this kind of looks a little weird, but I kept on watching it because it was wrestling. I just didn't care if there was a wrestling show
Yeah.
on, I would watch it. Um, but we have one more topic, and according to reports, Fightful said that NXT UK stars Jagger Reed and Flip Fowler, formerly known as the Grizzlied Young Veterans, have requested to take their release from the WWE. It's unclear why they want out of the company, but the report noted that the tag team would address it shortly. And of course, that was like 4 or 5 days ago, guys, and they've yet to mention anything. Lance, what's your take on this?
Well, okay, I watched the Schism versus Chase U on the pre-show of Stand and Deliver on Saturday afternoon because it was on YouTube. And I kind of wanted to see the Rockstar's first match. And they seem to be doing well in that match because Grizzled Young Vets were part of the that it. I mean, I hope they do well in whatever they do, but this kind of fucks the Schism.
All
I
right,
mean,
Joe.
you're taking away half of them, so.
Yeah. Well, Joe, what's your take on that?
Well, I think it's just you know the tag team rest. I think some of these guys are just worried the direction of WWE and wanted to moving out of that territory before it becomes something that's going to make an unpleasant experience. And right now, the way I see this, this tag team was pretty good. I'm not a. I used to watch NXT regularly, and I used to watch these guys. And recently, these two. But yeah, I mean, wow, we when a team wants to leave, they either got a better offer someplace else, or they are just tired of the WWE. And that's why you're probably going to see a lot of this sentiment when it comes to, or sentiment when it comes to this, because of what's going on now. Throughout being growing up and watching WWE or WWF back in the day, hell, I was even watching WWF just to see the company go into somebody else's. Now it's belongs to a different company, even though the same people are running it. Your future is uncertain now. So these guys probably, I don't know, maybe they just felt creatively they were not being used properly. Maybe they wanted to go to the main roster. That could be another thing too. But they obviously feel like they need to move away from this company, and who knows? Maybe that's what they're looking to do.
And that's again a good point. With all the shifts that's been going on in WWE, a lot of wrestlers probably are upset and kind of on edge of what the next move is. Um, and to be honest with you, I've watched a couple of the matches. I watched the Schism match, and I don't know. I mean, it was kind of like a weird. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It just, not one that I say I could really connect with, or I was something I would like a huge fan overnight, so to speak. Um, but that's pretty much it for this edition of Hardcore Wrestling Rants. I want to thank everybody who came in the chat room to hang out. I want to thank James Jones, Mark K, Terry 3G. We also want to give a quick shout out to TKWA who come in, and he has his wrestling reality show.
Shall I take over for that?
Go ahead, Joe, please.
Yeah, TKWA is a virtual wrestling promotion that they do promo-based battles. If you it's all based now in the WWE 2K23 setting. You shoot a promo, it goes up against another person's promo. Whoever wins, their character wins in game. You do not play the game; it's set for you. So that's how that works. So definitely check them out on Facebook, TKWA or Trent Killers Wrestling Association. Make sure you check it out. And let's not forget BC Games and More, BC and Mrs. A, where they've been really some personal things have happened to them in their family. They're finally getting back. So check them out every Saturday or Sunday at 9:30 on Facebook. Just do the hashtag BC Games and More.
All right. Lance, you're over at Lance Moss TV. What do you got going on over there?
Well, every Tuesday night, I go live on Lance Moss TV. And friends, I never know who's going to show up. And this Friday, I will be releasing another episode of the Offset Hollow Body Guitar Build.
Awesome. Can't wait to see it. And Joe, you were over at Skull and Realms, where you played the latest games of yesterday, today. What's going on over there?
Well, I'll be doing a show later on tonight. I'm going back in retro. I'm going to try taking on one of the hardest games ever, and that is Mega Man 1. I'm going to begin the Mega Man series. So I'll be playing Mega Man 1, and I'm not a good person to be doing that. But check me out. Just do the hashtag Skullgents Realm. I am on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Just find me. I do games of yesterday, today, PC, the console. So just check me out. And also, if you guys are looking for HWR t-shirts or my t-shirts, please go to skullgentsrealm.live. Hit the merch button and you guys will see all of our shirts there.
All right. So there you have it. So for the Hardcore Crew, I'm your hardcore host, Rick Head, saying we'll see you when we see you.
Buy the shirt!
Yeah, you better.